Welcome back. In this video, we're going to write our first Node application, and I use the term application extremely loosely. It's just going to be a single file with some basic JavaScript, but I'll show you how we can interact with Node console, and we'll also see how we can run a file with Node. So those are the two objectives here. The first thing that we'll talk about is the Node console. So we've seen the JavaScript console in the browser before, which we can open up and we can interact with. We can type JavaScript commands in the browser. We can do things like alert and console.log or whatever debugging that we want. Well, Node has its own version of the console, and it's a little bit different because it's all based in the command line. We don't get the nice browser interface. There's no HTML tools, no inspector, no elements. Because we're on the server side, there is no HTML, there is no CSS to actually look at and interact with. So the Node console is just a place that we can open in our terminal with a simple command, and then we can start typing JavaScript commands and they'll be executed just like they are in the browser. And to be honest, it's really not that useful. We might end up opening it once or twice aside from this video, but I do like to show it just so that you know it exists. We can open it up by typing the command node. And I'm actually going to show you how I can do it on my computer in the terminal first, just so that you understand it works exactly the same way inside of the browser using Cloud9. So I type node and my cursor or the prompt changes. I'll make that a little bigger. You can see we get this little caret, which means I'm now inside of the JavaScript console. So if I type something, some JavaScript, like 4 plus 10, I get 14. Or I can do things like hello plus world, just like that. Or I can do full JavaScript. I could write a function if I wanted to. I won't do that here, but I can just interact with JavaScript. It's something called a REPL, R-E-P-L, which stands for read, evaluate, print, loop. I'm a big fan of drawing comparisons between languages and between different frameworks and technologies. I'm actually going to show you Ruby's own REPL, which we will never use in this class at all, but I just want to demonstrate so that you can see it works exactly the same way. So I'm going to get out of here, and to quit, I can type Control-C twice. And to open up the Ruby console, I type IRB. It stands for Interactive Ruby. And now I can type Ruby code in here. So I'll type a really simple line of Ruby like 40 plus 9, and I get 49. And that's all I want to show. It's a place we can write Ruby in our command line. We type IRB and hit enter, and we enter like this new place where we can't type our command line things like ls or cd because it thinks those are Ruby variables or methods or something. Same thing when we go into the Node console. Now I'll show you how we can go over to Cloud9 and start working in the Node console here. It's the exact same command. We just type node and hit enter. Our cursor changes, and now I can start writing server-side JavaScript. So let's do something simple again. We'll just do console.log, a bunch of letters, just like that. And we get this printed out. An important point I want to make is that a lot of the things that you're used to in the JavaScript console in the browser are not available here. We can't do something like alert. If I try and do alert hello, I get an error. It tells me alert is not defined. And that's because alert comes with the browser. And even though we're in the browser here, remember that we're not actually in the browser. So we're typing code in the browser, but it's being run on one of Cloud9's computers somewhere else on the server side where there isn't a browser. So it's just like me going here and going into Node and typing alert something. It doesn't exist because I'm not in the browser. Same thing like the document. Document doesn't exist at all in Node. That's purely on the browser side. So none of the DOM, none of those events, listeners, none of the selectors, the manipulation, all of that is only in the browser. None of that exists with Node. That's all I want to show with the Node console. As I mentioned, we really won't be using it much, but it's just a nice introduction to how Node works. We can just start running JavaScript in the terminal. The next bullet here is much more important, which is how we can run a file with Node. So what I mean by saying run a file with Node is that we can create a JavaScript file, call it whatever we want, and fill it with JavaScript code, and then we can execute it in the command line without a browser, without any HTML or CSS, just execute it on its own by using the node command. To use it, we just type node and then a file name, just like that. And if we hit enter, it will try and execute whatever file we provided as JavaScript. So let me demonstrate that now. I'm going to, in my command line, make a new file. I'll just call it hello.js. So touch hello.js. And now we'll type ls, make sure it's there. There it is. Let's open it up in our editor and let's add some simple JavaScript. So let's do a for loop. For var I equals 0, I less than 10, I plus plus, and we'll just do a console.log hello from hello.js, just like that. And we'll hit save. And now I can use the node command to execute this file, to actually run this code. So again, I type node and the name of the file, which is hello.js. And that's it. I hit enter, and it executes the file for me, and it console.logs to this console here, my terminal, hello from hello.js, 10 times. We won't be writing code like this very much. What we'll actually be doing is stuff like this, which you've already seen, where I run node app.js, which is my file that has my server. And it actually starts the server for me, and it serves it on port 3000, and I can go visit port 3000 now because I ran app.js with Node, or as Node, I executed the file. So that's what we'll be seeing it used a lot more as, but we can also just do this, where we have a for loop and a console.log. It works the same way, it's just JavaScript code that's being run. The very last thing I'll show here is another parallel between JavaScript and Node and Ruby. So we can also create a Ruby file and execute it, not with the node command, but with the Ruby command. And I'm showing this to you again, not because you're supposed to be learning Ruby at all. You definitely don't have to remember this, but I do want you to see it so that you can draw another comparison between Node and Ruby and other server-side languages. This is something you can do in pretty much every server-side language. So I'll go over here and make a new file called hello.rb. And I'll open that file up. RB is how we make a Ruby file. And I'll just do something simple, hi from hello.rb. And we won't use a loop, we'll just do it 3 times and save. That is what Ruby looks like. No semicolons or anything, we don't need parentheses. I'll close out of there. And to execute that file, instead of doing node hello.js, I run ruby hello.rb. And it executes my file, which is Ruby code. It runs it as Ruby, and it prints me hi from hello.rb 3 times. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show here. There were 2 objectives. One, show you the Node console, which you can open by just typing node with no argument, and then run a file with Node, which you can do with node and the file name. And it needs to end in .js. In the next lesson, I'm going to have you write some JavaScript on your own and execute it with Node.